Every dollar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Marie. Today we have a great program. I'm going to be talking about traveling, and I have Michelle Holmes, who's all the way in Canada, on the phone, and she's going to be talking about her travel adventures. But first, I was going to open Michelle with the YouTube video, but maybe I'll close with that instead. Instead of, it looks very scary. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And thank you for accepting my invitation. I wasn't sure. Typically, it's great to have sort of international interviews done, but by the way, I was actually cleaning when I discovered your blog. I was looking at the travel section of the New York Times. I think you had a plug in there back in last summer. So instead of just throwing the papers out, I'm sort of going through the travel section, and then I'm like, oh my God, there's a blog. And then I was like, and I checked each one of them out to see what they were about, and I really enjoy exploring your blog particularly. So that's how I sort of get the idea of having you on the show and talk about your blog and what's going to be happening for 2014 in terms of traveling. So I'm hoping our viewers will be excited to hear what you've been up to and for them to take the leap if they have any inspiration to sort of travel more this year. But first, let's start by talking a little bit about yourself and then what inspired you to start the blog, Wandering Off.
It's been a couple of things. I guess I've always enjoyed writing, but the writing comes from a memoir class. I find that I was taking a memoir class and people were writing stories that were all very sad, and everybody talks about tragic events in their lives, and sure, we all have those moments, but I believe that life is so much more fun and exciting, and there's a lot of goofy things to get into. So Monday nights we would go around the circle in our class and tell these heartbreaking stories, and I thought, I can't do this because I'll just go home and drink. So I would instead try to bring lighter stories in and happier stories and stories that I felt really filled me up and would hopefully do that for others. And so with the memoir, it was more my travel stories started coming in and what happened when I was, in Africa or wandered off to Cuba, that sort of thing. So it just kind of went from there. I have a friend who does something similar, and she one day said, well, I don't really want to pay for plane tickets anymore. I'm going to start a magazine. And so she started her travel magazine, and I've piggybacked onto that a little bit. But it's just a place to get my stories out and hopefully, as you said, inspire people to take that leap and venture off on their own.
Yeah, I told my friends when I first invited you on the show about the magazine you work for, and they were like, is the magazine hiring? Because it sounds like the perfect job for writers and people who just love to explore and not sort of stay still in terms of going to different places, but sharing it with others versus, just writing about it to yourself, like your own self enjoyment. The magazine sounded really interesting as well, but it's kind of nice for you to actually work and sort of mesh what you're interested in and your sort of day job, I guess, at the same time.
Absolutely. I work for a park, so I'm a manager of visitor experience. Basically, my job here is to make sure people have a nice time when they're out in the park, and I take my travel experience with me in terms of understanding what kind of travelers there are, what kind of experiences to be had. Some people like to read everything they come across, other people like to get their boots dirty, and other people like to get involved. So being a traveler, it helps me kind of perceive what they want when they come to the park, and it works out well.
So tell our viewers about the park. So what part of Canada? I'm gonna pretend I don't know where you are. What part of Canada are you in?
So I'm in basically southern Ontario. I'm the Toronto area, so kind of around the corner from Buffalo. And the park is 10,000 acres. It's a nature park that's surrounded by the city and some rural agricultural areas too. And so to think that within 1 hour's drive of sitting in this quiet forest full of birds, you've got 7 million people. And you would never imagine that you've got a major highway and big city right next door. It's just you immerse yourself into the forest and it's beautiful.
That's great. I mean, I think just looking at the images from your travel sort of make me want to go somewhere, anywhere, actually, because you take really great shots of where you are. And I think sometimes the writing is as critical as the photographs from your travels, because they say so much more sometimes than you talking about what you've done and what your experiences was like. I mean, do you find that it's a nice compliment in terms of what you're writing and also capturing that experience on film?
Absolutely. I think the photos really help complement the story because I can tell you that, oh, there was a child that smiled, but until you see the brilliant gleam in their eye and capture that. And because everybody interprets things a little bit differently, this way I can show exactly what I saw from my point of view, but also people can take from it what they want.
Yeah, I think that's great. So one of the things that seem to happen a lot is at the end of the year, there's always these travel lists that I'm reading, and it's like the top places to go. So after all the places you've been to, what's on your list for 2014?
2014 should be pretty exciting. I'm in the middle of planning a trip to Zimbabwe and Ethiopia. That will be in May, and this trip will be a bit different. The times that I've been to Africa before have been to sightsee or to visit friends. I've done a little bit of volunteer work, but this one, I'll be going to one area near the capital city of Zimbabwe, which is Harare, and I'm going to be working with a group called Village of Hope and building a house for some orphans. And then I'll go across the country to a little town that I can't even begin to pronounce, but near a city called Bulawayo. And in there, I sponsor a child through World Vision. So I'm going to go up and meet the child, see the village, and see firsthand the work that those charitable organizations do. And then from there, I'm going to fly up to Ethiopia, and I've made some connections with UNICEF up there. And UNICEF has a wide variety of programs that I could hope to feature and highlight as well, whether it's landmine removal or health and sanitation and education and that sort of stuff. So it'll be a busy trip. I'll definitely find some time in there to have a bit of fun. They have buried churches, or even another church that you have to basically scale a cliff 250 meters up through these tiny little holes and no ropes and nothing safe about it whatsoever. And you climb in, and there's a church buried in the cliff side. So, and it's an active church. They regularly use it. There's a monk that lives there. So there'll be some fun as well as work. So.
Oh, and then so do you include that as part of the magazine, or is it mostly for the blog, or a combination?
Probably be a both. I imagine that the stories will cover off a number of locations. So certainly my blog I try to focus on the things I don't tell my mother.
Okay.
Things that would worry her or make her yell at me. Those are the things that I try to write about. The magazine is a little bit more friendly, I suppose. Although they like that I write crazy stuff too. So yeah, a bit of both. And then hopefully if I can share my stories with the organizations that can further use that information to promote the good work that they do, then that's bonus points all around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way. I mean, I've been thinking about where to go. Well, not this year, but just in general, because a lot of time traveling, I mean, it takes some planning and a lot of time. So if you don't have a lot of time in terms of work, you have to sort of plan where you're going to go. I mean, I think it's great that you're doing multiple legs along the way versus like one location at a time. So how do you decide, I mean, on those places, like even though there are so many organizations, but what drew you to those places for this year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it tends to be, I go by my gut, or if I feel that there's something that I want. It hasn't ever always been a location per se, as if I want to go and see California. It's more of a feeling. So my job is quite busy, and I'm dealing with people all the time, and I love it. I love talking to people, but there comes a time when I enjoy silence too. And so my choice of trip for that time of year in June, after all the craziness is past, I just want to go somewhere quiet. And for me, I drive out to the East Coast, and I hop on a boat that goes out to the ocean, into the Bay of Fundy, for about an hour and a half. And there's a little island there called Grand Manan. From there, I drive across the island, and there are cliffs, and I set my tent on a cliff, and I just sit very quietly for a week. And the whales go by, and I camp, and I read, and I nap. So sometimes it's things like, not so much I want to see the coast, but I just need some peace and quiet, or a slower pace. Other ones have been going to Cuba. There's some people say you need to get there soon because as more and more changes come about, it loses some of the character of the 1950s style. So
Okay.
there's a sense of urgency of I need to get there. Yeah, so it depends on what opportunities come up through the travel writing. I've been offered I think in October I went to Moldova.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
The offer came in and said, would you like to go to Moldova? And I said, sure. And then I immediately went to Google and looked up what is Moldova. So you just have to, for me, it's mostly following my gut, but also being able to just say yes and go.
Go. I mean, it's nice to have that kind of freedom. So even for me, it's like I was trying to think. For some reason, I've been thinking a lot about Costa Rica, and I saw a combination sort of package that they have for both Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Because though it's nice when you're able to do 2 or 3 different locations
Yes.
at the same time, but if you're able to sort of tie that with work or something you always wanted to do, I think it's a nice combination. But I know a lot of time people talk more about traveling than they actually travel. And there are so many things that kind of inspire people to do that. So one of the questions I had was thinking about, have you seen any movies recently where you felt like, oh, this is so great, I want to go there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of movies. I think the one that hit me the hardest, I actually saw long ago when I was quite young. I saw Gorillas in the Mist, which is the story of Diane Fossey working to protect gorillas in the mountains in Rwanda, Congo, the Virunga Mountains. And just the idea that this woman could go off in the jungle and deal with gorillas all by herself, not only survive, but then turn around and share those stories forward and explain the beauty and the science and everything that she's learned. That has always been an inspiration for me. So it all started from a movie like that. And then I think more recently it's India. There's something about India that's calling my name. And it's movies like Slumdog Millionaire or Outsourced, where you just see chaos and color and it's very vibrant. So those are a couple of the ones that have pulled me.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are great. I mean, I think for me, I like the idea of traveling being transformative versus just, I mean, I do want to get away and escape and sort of be able to relax and not deal with the sort of hustle and bustle of day-to-day sort of stresses. But at the same time, if you go and be able to sort of make an impact, however short the trip is, I think it's even more meaningful when you return home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and one thing that has helped me in returning home, I really try to keep those connections, those relationships, the friendships that I've made with the people that are there. So it's not just I'm here to be your friend for a few minutes and that's all fun. No, many of the friends that I've made in Africa, I talk to on a regular basis through Facebook or various email or chat. And it helps really keep the experience alive, but also it helps keep the perspective fresh. Like you realize that it's a bigger world. There's more going on, or makes you always consider what else is happening in the world. So it's one way to certainly extend that relationship and the experience of travel.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great too. I think it changed perspective as well in terms of, you probably have more ideas in terms of things you may want to work on or something you never even thought about until you are at that particular destination. The other question I had was, again, I mentioned that a lot of people do think about traveling, but most likely people travel domestically or, stay exactly where they are. Do you have any tips in terms of what may be holding people's back to sort of take that leap and just at least go to one place that may or may not be on their bucket list?
Yeah, in terms of being able to inspire to make the leap to finally get up and go, as much as traveling close to home, I think that's really important too. I try to, as much as I go away, I like to explore what's around me. But to be able to go far away, quite often budget is a restraint. A lot of people don't have spare cash lying around, or when you drop $1,000 on a set of plane tickets, it makes your heart beat a little bit faster, and you're like, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I do is I have set aside a bank account, so every paycheck, even as little as $25, if you save $25 out of every paycheck for a year, suddenly you've got over $600, and that plane ticket doesn't hurt quite so much. Another thing I do is I tell people I'm going to go to Africa, I'm going to go and do this, and so it comes to a point where you're like, oh, I have to follow through now, and so you end up having to commit that way. And then I think just do it. I think that life is really, really too short. A lot of people will wait until they can find the right travel partner, or wait until work isn't so busy or life isn't so chaotic, but it always is.
Right.
So for me, it has to be a priority. I get quite restless if I don't have a set of plane tickets kind of in hand or on the horizon. So for me, it's my own sanity. But I think it's just you have to make it a priority and then commit to it.
I mean, I think those are great. So you've been to Costa Rica. So anything memorable from that trip? I don't know how long ago you went there.
Yeah, I went to Costa Rica when it'd be over 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So it was really exciting, and I think that that's something that whet this appetite within me, because when I had gone, it wasn't quite so popular. So I was considered new. The idea of a small blonde girl was a bit of a novelty. So as exciting as it was for me, I found that there was an excitement within them to make the connection and talk. But one thing I remember was that was my first time whitewater rafting, and I had a fit. I was with my father at the time, and I saw the river, I saw the little raft, and I'm like, there's no way I am not.
You're gonna jump.
Go. And they said, come on, we've just driven through the jungle for 3 hours to get you here. We have to go. It's cost a lot. They do the parental guilt trip.
Yeah.
And by the time we got in, and we were flying over Class 5 rapids by the end of it, and it was so much fun.
I saw that. It seemed like this thing flipped like sideways. I don't know if that was one of the pictures there, but it seemed like one of the pictures you sent me, it seemed like, like the whole thing flipped in the water.
That was the Zambezi in Africa and near Livingstone, and it was one of those moments where we were kind of coming up to an area where you could go hard left and probably be okay, or go right and probably flip, and I got outvoted. I was like, let's go left.
Let's flip.
No, we're gonna go right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we flipped.
Oh, that's insane.
It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good. I mean, I'm so glad you take so many pictures, because I love the animal pictures you take. I mean, and you come really close to them. Like, I see the one with the giraffe.
Yeah.
I just cannot believe you are that close.
So is that the one where the giraffe is kissing me?
Yeah.
There's one. Yeah. So her name is Lola.
Oh my God.
She lives at a giraffe sanctuary just outside of Nairobi in Kenya.
Oh.
And I had just landed in Nairobi with my friend and had gone on a quick tour before we met up with the rest of the group we were traveling with. And our driver guy said, well, I'm not taking anybody back until somebody gets a kiss from Lola. So
That's
I'm
hilarious.
like, well, okay. So I had to put a piece of kibble in my mouth, and sure enough, this giraffe comes out of the forest and gives me the biggest slimy kiss I've ever had.
Oh my God. That was like I guess your Prince Charming.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I saw that. I was just like, oh, wow. I don't know if I would come that close. I feel like I remember watching some kind of movie where they were showing how giraffe are not as, I don't know if it was just the movie itself, but they're not always as gentle if they feel like they're in danger or something. But you look very harmless. A memorable kiss you had there, which is
great. I was a little bit nervous, I won't lie.
Oh my God.
She's big.
Yeah, I mean, those are really great. And then you have the I think there was like a rhino and a baboon, a lot of fun animal images.
Yeah, I think that's what I was surprised about being on safari. Like, when you're out around where we live, it's, you see a deer, and then you might see a rabbit over there. But in particular, a few of those places, I think that one was Lake Nakuru, or being in the Ngorongoro crater, all the animals are together. They're just all gathered up at the watering hole, or just almost how we'd see a herd of cows, you'd see a herd of antelope or zebra. It was just, there's this cluster of variety of animals.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have, yeah, I just love seeing them. I think the zebra is definitely one of my favorite to really look at. And I'm still looking at the travel page of the New York Times. I'm looking at the one today, which is, and again, those are very sort of tempting because you look and you're like, oh, this is really great. You should go there. I discovered a page, I think, along when your blog was being promoted, of this guy who started this website just for festivals around the world. I don't know if you saw that. That was really interesting because that's another way to go and sort of like be with people and celebrating something that might be very cultural to that particular destination. And I've never heard of that before. And I think it's just another way to sort of like go from place to place, but there's a specific reason for going and way to connect with people through the festival. I thought that was just a brilliant tool to create because then you can just know what's going on 365 days out of the year of places you can go if you ever visit, whatever location.
I think that's a great idea too, because it's an immediate way to immerse in the local culture as well. So it's not like you're, when you're on safari, you're in this truck and you're out. If you're at a festival, you are, pressed up against somebody else as you're trying to bustle into the street meat store. You're sharing wine together. It's so much more. You become part of the community that way, and it's a celebration. So everybody's in a good mood and happy to share.
Yeah, so I think those are great. So the blog, will you be adding more this year in terms of more postings and images? I know you used to post something like on Fridays. Will you continue those parts of the website?
Absolutely. I'm working on a piece right now for my trip that I took to Newfoundland this summer.
Okay.
I think what it is it's quite often because I do have a regular full-time job and then there's other things that are going on. So I try to, my hope was to do a photo Friday, probably twice a month, and then write my articles as well. So I've been a little bit of a slacker.
Got busy.
Yeah, definitely. But I think over the next while, it's one of those things I have to commit to doing regularly. So there's certainly a lot of catching up to do, and I do hope to. Certainly the Newfoundland one will be coming up within the next week. Sometimes you get written and you're all excited, and then you have to fact check it. And so you're at the mercy of others to come back to you with rates or fees or facts or figures. So I'm just waiting on that one, and hopefully you'll see that in the next week or so.
All right, so that'll be fun. So I know you definitely on Twitter and Facebook. So if people are interested in following the blog or following your travel adventures, would you recommend the blog as the first stop or Facebook?
Yeah, I think the blog is probably your first stop. I'm on Instagram, and it's at wanderingoff as well. And then I try to tweet regularly. My Facebook page, I need to get that going a little bit further, but that's where I hope to continue putting a lot of my photos.
Okay.
So that one will be growing as well.
So have you ever thought about compiling all these different stories that you have into a book?
Would love to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that's my goal for this year, last year when I turned 37, I came up with a list of 37 things to do while I was 37.
Mm-hmm.
And write about them. So I have an additional blog elsewhere where I've documented most of those activities. That's another thing I have to catch up on. So this year my goal is to put that into an ebook, and then secondary, choose my 15 best travel stories and come up with another book for that. But I think the blog has to come first for now.
Yeah.
To get that all caught up.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think because some of it, you already write it. I think writing is like such a hard process, but because you're doing so much, it's not like you making those stories up. It's like you have a lot to share, and I think combining them together and choosing the best sort of like the best stories will be great to sort of share with people and still be part of the blog and be part of your work. So more people will be able to have access to that. So you on Instagram, Twitter, there is a page on Facebook where people can like versus befriending you. So that one people can also go on there as well.
Yeah, I think it's not off the top of my head right now, but I think it's the slash is I am wandering off.
Yep, exactly. I'm on there now, so I'm gonna put that on the screen. People can see it. Lots of pictures. That's why I saw the pictures with the giraffe, and I saw the still hides. So I put that on the slides. Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of great profile pictures. So I'm hoping people will go on Twitter. They can go on Facebook and get more. And then the blog, they can always read past stories, which is what I've been doing to really sort of stay motivated and see all the places you've gone to. And I'm hoping as you're doing more travel, like we'll be able to stay in touch. And I would love to just continue to promote the blog and get people excited about, doing, taking that leap, because I think, a lot of people are sort of reluctant to just do it.
Yeah, and I think for me too, that's the whole. If I can break down the barrier to people thinking, oh, well, I'll end up eaten by a tiger or an elephant, or,
I know.
make them understand that this small,
It's not gonna happen.
blonde girl
Yeah.
has survived all these things, then they can do it too.
You can do it. So thank you, Michelle, for being on the show. I'm hoping you'll be back a few times throughout the year and then share some of those stories and get people excited, hopefully about the book, whether it's this year or, in less than a year to come. So thank you for accepting my invitation, and I hope our viewers will check out your blog.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have been a part of this, and I'm always happy to share my stories.
Thanks, and stay warm. So I'm gonna show the clip from the YouTube, from your website, and then hopefully you take more videos too, because that's really fun.
I just bought a new camera that takes video, so that's part of the goal for this year as well.
That's so awesome. Thank you again, and happy travels.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care. I hope you get to Costa Rica soon.
I hope so too. Thanks.